Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Crate Expectations. I'm here with about to pop Sarah. How are you today, Sarah?
I am about to pop. That is accurate. How are you?
I'm not about to pop, but you know, that's actually also that's good. That's a good thing. So yeah, we can just move right along. Galaxy of Heroes
Mhm.
is undergoing a new like a title update,
Yeah.
and yeah, so there's that. What else are we talking about today?
So we've got a lovely trigger photo, a character to review that has to do a little bit with the title update
A
to,
little
to
bit, yeah.
just to tie it in. Um, Viewer questions is going to be a little interesting today. There was a comment that kind of spurred my own question.
Okay,
Um, so we can talk about that. And I know you got a question specifically that we're gonna go over. And then the usual like pack review, roster roast.
yeah, the huge.
The usual. The pack review is a crystal. It costs crystals, not currency.
Still a
Um,
pack.
it's still a pack, but that is what one of the aspects of it. So
Okay,
yeah. Um, should we start with this title update then? Because there's really nothing else going on in game currently.
sure. So, new title update. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people are surprised.
Bless you.
Thanks. You could hear me. I don't think anyone else could.
Oh.
They could hear my pause though. um, yeah. So, title update. Uh, and no one expected it, but it's just a back end like the meat
Mhm.
face got on and told everyone on someone's Discord server,
Right.
right?
That
The
that it's just a back end tech update.
right, and it's that like you're upgrading. They're upgrading butts, but like on the character model and stuff. What if that was what he meant?
Then
Okay,
just go rotate all your characters. No. Um
I don't know. I'd be like, you're spending time doing that. All right, no, nonsense aside. Yeah, so we are getting the other like I don't know. It's kind of like a tease because we're also getting a new icon for the game.
right. So this title update, if it's not in your app store by the time we launch this episode, I guess, it should be later in the day because usually they're all rolled out by like Wednesday evening. Um
Right. So my guess is that this is just like the building blocks for the new raid.
That's what I'm thinking too. I think they're putting in like maybe the back end tech work is the reward tracks, switching over the like getting that kind of organized in terms of how that's going to work with guild tracking and personal guild or personal raid rewards.
Right.
And we'll see more. But the icon is Mando.
Right. Which is no coinkydink. There's the Mando show is being released. Like I think. Well, it's not quite yet. I think in an hour and a half from when we're recording this,
Hmm.
I'll be able to watch Mando. If I'll be busy making videos, I probably won't have time tonight. But it's available, March 1st. And so just as an aside, how excited are you for the new season?
Oh man, I'm so excited for the new season. I like caught up on everything today that I didn't watch just so that I could watch it right away.
Oh, like
To
your other shows, like
yeah, like
yeah.
all the other stuff that I wanted to watch. I was like, I need a clean slate so I can just focus Wednesday morning and
Which,
watch
but
Mando.
by the way, folks, I mean, for we're gonna be like Sarah's gonna be taking a break from all content creation for a little bit,
Hmm.
for important necessary reasons, of course. But if you ever want more content from specifically Sarah and I, we'd also talk about different shows. Like we have a weekly podcast that we
Yeah.
talk about the various nerd shows that are being released. It's been fun.
like Mando.
Yeah. Yeah, Mando. We're doing The Last of Us right now, so we have a Discord server. You guys can go find all the links and all the things in the video description if you want.
Exactly.
Right. It even has my real name on it.
Does.
Yeah.
Which if anyone watched, I think it was on my part that we let your real name slip once.
I mean, it's not been a secret. It's just funny.
I know.
I always
uh,
give my mom crap for how unoriginal my name is, so, it's not nice. Anyways, yeah, so I'm excited about Mando as well. Hopefully, we
mhm.
get some cool characters from it and stuff. I'll be a little sad if that's all we get. We just like get an icon. They're like,
Just get.
"What? You're saying you didn't get content? Of course you got an icon."
I'm actually
Like,
curious. Like,
all
so
right,
do you expect? Because I saw that the icon changed, and I was like, oh, like maybe we're gonna get a marquee.
right. Well, we haven't seen. I mean, and this isn't even looking at the trailers, but like we haven't
Mhm.
seen him with the spear yet, have we?
Right. I don't think so.
Or the dark saber.
I don't think we have. Um, Now I'm just thinking. So remember when uh Bam was released? That was that like hero's journey character,
Right.
and
Well,
it was basically to tie in to Mando and like bring fans in from the show to play the game, right? Like that's kind of
sure.
how it seemed to be marketed. I'm wondering if this icon is a similar thing.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty good. I really like the I really like the character. Obviously, like I've always thought that he got a really bad rap from. There are certain content creators who have
Right.
really done their best to drag him through the mud, and I'm like, I don't see why. Like, he's actually very functional if you're using him in realistic ways.
Right.
Like
Absolutely.
he's not doing anything too crazy heroic in the show either. Like he's like part of the appeal is he's just like this dude who gets shot a ton, and the only thing that keeps him alive is his badass armor. So
Right. And he's just, backpacking across the galaxy with his little buddy.
right, um, it's like the same thing as same thing
Last.
as The Last of Us. It's like the same plot. She's Grogu.
Uh,
So, anyways, I'm we actually we actually have two Mandalorian characters from the first season. We have Zero after that because he's like the culmination of the end of episode or the end of the finale. I guess it's episode
mhm.
8 or whatever. Like that's he has his whistling birds. He has his full Beskar Mando stuff, but we don't see anything from episode or from season 2. We don't see
Right.
anything from the Book of Boba Fett.
Hmm.
I mean, seems like we should get something.
Would you be annoyed if we got a third Mando?
No, no. I mean, there are 5 Hans in the game, and there's like a
That's
few
true.
other versions of Han that we could have. Like, I'm annoyed that we have as few versions of Leia as we do.
Right.
Frankly, like the game. There are other games that they just have like 8 million versions of every big character because they know that sells. And I mean, I kind of admire CG's restraint on that point. To be honest, like
Hmm.
that they could have released a lot of these characters. They've been slow rolling and they've been patient about it. And I mean, people are gonna roll their eyes. They'll be like, "Oh my gosh, here's Zareth apologizing for CG again." I just I don't. I remember the eye rolls that happened when they just released like Commander or Captain Han Solo, and then
Hmm.
pretty soon after that they released Veteran Han.
Right.
And then there was like one other version that I'm just, oh yeah, Young Han came
Hmm.
a little bit later, and it was all like kind of all at the same time. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, we have 5 versions of Han now, like the eye rolling. But then we haven't had another Han for years.
Right. So, I mean, e- eventually you have to release, especially because I'm pretty sure a while ago CG did say that they probably would not do skins. Um, so if you're going to release these characters that have different iterations of themselves, then you have to release it as a whole new character if you're not going to do a skin.
Right. Well, and for me, I mean, I was talking about in the podcast the other day on the Gambit podcast. Like I have like this character fatigue, but typically the most exciting thing for me that's released is a character because the kits it changes everything. The interactions, and I really hope that they make the Mandalorian faction robust from this show. I hope like they're gonna have the opportunity to release a whole lot of Mandalorians. Hopefully.
Yeah. That's a great point because when you look at the trailers for The Mandalorian season 3, it really does look like there is potential for them to just dump a ton more Mandalorian characters into the game, and maybe those are some marquees that we get instead. It doesn't necessarily have to be Mando himself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so one way or another, it could be cool. I mean, I know we're already getting like Cal Kestis and his journey stuff, and yeah, we might not get it for months from
mhm.
now, but something to look forward to, and yeah, should be good.
Yeah, I have
Uh,
no complaints.
yeah, good. So we had talked about like what we were gonna talk like farming strategies a little bit, right?
Yeah, in terms of so this kind of popped into my head based off some comments that were on our last roast, basically. But
Mm-hmm.
my thought was, where should you focus? And I was kind of thinking about this, like, where should a player focus if you are like early to mid game for your roster? So let's say like, I don't know, 3.5 million, 4 million GP to 6-ish. Because obviously you have multiple things that you need to farm. You have so many different paths that you can go down. Which Galactic Legend do you go after? Which legendary do you go after? Like all of these things. And does it make sense at that point with your roster to focus on what CG is saying to focus on? So, i.e., Inquisitors or Tuscans or whatever it is, or Jabba? Or do you focus on building the important aspects of your roster out so that you can have some like width and uh, depth to the majority of the game modes and then get specific? Or do you
Right.
just go full tilt at what CG is saying?
Right. Well, and I want to hear what you have to say about the PVE aspect because my last priority is typically going to be like, oh, how can I get the most out of conquest? Oh, I think honestly that's a
Hmm.
very important question. I just wouldn't
Hmm.
personally prioritize because I'm like, I'm like, am I winning in GAC? Oh, then my account is good.
Right.
Like that that's typically like what my priorities are. Here's the thing I think that for me is probably the closest to like the universal truth as I see it is you need a foundation to be able to help yourself unlock. There are a million things to unlock. I should make a video on that of just like a list of things you have to have a team for.
For all the
Like
different unlock requirements.
well, because like you have all the assault battles, you
Hmm.
have you have the Galactic Legends and all the legendaries, and just a ton of different events and all these different things that you
Hmm.
need to have a team for. And not to mention you have to have like geos to be able to do the WAP mission. You have to have
Hmm.
like 501st, or I guess now you can do Bad Batch with Omegacron to be
Right.
able to do the cam. Like there are all these different things, and all I'll say is like there are certain squads that at the foundation you really want to get, and it's like, well, it doesn't seem that functional. Like bounty hunters don't seem that flashy, or troopers. You're like, yeah, they kill a few things, like they kill a whole corner's worth of counters, but they're not like essential. They're not as powerful as a Galactic Legend. But long term, you're probably going to want to focus on a lot of those first just
Hmm.
so that you have the tools to unlock stuff later down the line. That being said, I want to hear what your thoughts on it are, and specifically, I would like to know. I want to like discuss specifically like should like newer players be focusing on Inquisition right now? Like how important is that?
Right. Yeah. So, and this is where it gets really tricky for me because you have newer players that are really, really focused, um, and they have solid teams. Like like yes, there will be gaps in the roster, but there are gaps in everyone's roster. There are gaps in my roster. Um, but they're really, really focused, which means that they could get into a guild theoretically that would want Inquisition, let's say, or encourage Inquisition. But then you have players that might not follow that route. And I know you and I were kind of discussing this beforehand, where if you look at two players that are both 4 million GP, their rosters are not the same.
No, I mean, yeah, I think I'm gonna talk about it on the plan a little bit later this week, but like people criticize me a little bit for they're like, oh my gosh, like you have an 8.4 million alt. Of course, I'm not gonna listen to you on GAC teams and strategies. Like,
Mhm.
I want to listen to someone who's making a video about 3 million GP characters and or accounts, and I'm like, okay, well that's cool, like you could almost make a joke about like, all right, like 2-3 million GP rosters walk into a bar,
Right.
and they have nothing like nothing in common whatsoever. Like they are completely different. Like they're like we both have Bosk,
Right.
like that's like the one common character in your whole $3 million or
Hmm.
3 million GP roster. And I'm like, if I make a roster, or if I make a like a GAC guide for 4 million accounts,
Hmm.
only like two people in the whole world are gonna actually have find that relatable.
Right. It's not it because there's just so many different ways you can go. And that relates back to what I was questioning earlier. Like, do you
Mm-hmm.
go after building out these core teams in your roster, or do you go after the newest thing?
Right. Or do you? Yeah. Like what exactly? Like how many Galactic Legends are necessary?
Right. So
Initially,
I
stuff
I
like that.
personally, and I feel like you and I are probably on the same page with this. I think it makes sense to build out the core teams.
Yeah, I think it does. Even though it can get grating, especially once you start realizing other people have chased Galactic Legends and have
Hmm.
them,
Hmm.
and you're still like, hey, well, my Night Sisters are passable now, or something. But not
Right.
that I'm saying you have to have Night Sisters, but, like, yeah, those foundational, those core foundation teams, I mean, they unlock so much and open so much of the game for you.
Well, and the thing is, like, they're going to be useful in the majority of areas because a lot of those teams, you're going to want them for assault battles, which is going to get you further. You're going to want them for GAC. You're going to want them for, if you want them for GAC, chances are you probably want them for territory war. You're going to want them
Mm-hmm.
for territory battles. A lot of them you will want for sure for conquest. And
Yeah,
like, that is a whole other, path you can go down that will
right.
eventually, once you hit that 4 million GP and you can start doing hard, um,
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole other ball game for you, right? So,
Well, absolutely. Well, so think about this. Like, okay, so they're like Imperial troopers will beat two of the different assault battles for you.
mhm,
They'll kill a lot, like they'll kill Lord Vader for you in GAC and Territory Wars, at least sometimes. That they'll be able, they're characters that you need for conquest sometimes. Like they're everywhere,
mhm,
basically. Like they're pervasive. They're not the most glamorous or flashy team, but think of this. Like if you had troopers the second those assault battles came out that kind of required them,
mhm.
and you farmed them, and then it's been like 3 years since they were, like out like how many crystals do you think that trooper team has earned you over the course of 3 years?
Right. From being able to do that event over and over again.
Right, like it's and now you can sim it and everything, but that's still like you can only sim it because you got 3 stars and because troopers helped you get there. So
Well, honestly, I'm really glad that you used troopers as the example because that's an argument I've heard from a lot of people regarding Inquisition and using them for the assault battle. And a lot of people didn't want to build them. Um, and we're like, oh, well, like the return on investment isn't worthwhile. Like you basically have to have over a year's worth of assault battles. And it's like, eventually you will have over a year's
right.
worth of us, like, so it will come back to you. And I understand that it's not an instant gratification thing. Um, but as you can see with Imperial troopers, like
Right.
it comes back. So it's going to be the
Mm-hmm.
same thing with Inquisition, with Jedi, with whatever you're using.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like, yes, I realize that it feels pretty bad when you're like, okay, I dumped how many Kairos into this Inquisition squad, and I
Hmm.
dumped how many, I have to put all these Zetas on, I put all these relics, I put all these Gear 12 pieces, and, now all I got was this lousy Grand Inquisitor, who then I have to also gear, and he's crazy hard to gear. And then we're not even done because Riva's on her way.
Right.
uh, you know. But I mean, Inquisition is the gift that keeps giving. Like so like you finally get Grand Inquisitor, and then you go in and do the assault battle.
Hmm.
You may or may not do tier 3, but initially, but like the whole thing is it takes a while to do, and then you're like, well, these rewards really like there's just a pittance compared to how much I invested on the team. Over the course of how many years, though, will it become something that's actively helping you? Not to mention, you're going to be able to get into a better guild that wants to. They're like, you know what? We only care about Riva shards. Like,
Right.
you have Inquisition, you're in. You know,
Right.
you know. So, but then those are the guys who have the big enough guild who can actually compete at the highest level of territory wars and get the full rewards. And they're the guys who are going to be finishing the crate dragon raid, for the full rewards. And you're going to like benefit from having that squad. All of the things stem from like, hey, you can participate in this end game content that other people who are a little bit lazier or just not interested in it. Lazy is probably not the right word, but
Right.
they're not competing in that. But you are. We'd rather have you. You have 4 million GP. That's fine. Welcome to the guild.
Right. Exactly. And I think it's also one of those cases where, and not just with Inquisitors, but just with teams in general, when you're looking at the return on investment for them, it's not necessarily just what they're required for when it comes to assault battles, but where else are you using them? Like, you're going to get a return on investment in territory battles. You're going to get a return on investment in conquest. You're going to get one in raids, most likely. Like, all of that adds up.
Oh, it totally does. It really does. I mean, and that's why I think that whether or not you should go for Jabba first is a totally different question. But people should absolutely be questioning it, even when they start. At what point do I start working on Jabba?
Right.
Because he is crazy important right now in the game. He is by far the most important character, in my opinion.
And I mean, you're using him everywhere.
Everywhere, every single place. Like, I mean, even in Conquest, there's no Jabba specific things right now, as far as I know, or Hut Cartel.
Mhm. There's Hut Cartel kills right
Oh yeah,
now.
yeah. Okay, you're right. You're right.
But Jabba makes it so easy because you can do a full Hut Cartel no attacker team, and you're doing two feats in Sector 4 by doing that. Um,
Sure.
because you're doing the kills and the full 14 wins with a squad without attackers on it. Um,
Right. Well. So even without that, though, there's also the ones that are like, hey, don't use any unaligned force users.
right, exactly.
And I mean, you can do it with other characters, with the Han, with Bam Han Chu kind of
Hmm.
builds. You've been doing it since forever, but like Jabba just makes it so smooth.
Yeah, he really does. So, it, I mean, so you have that, and I feel like part of the really interesting aspect of the game when you're starting out as a smaller player and like working your way up and figuring out how to build things is you're able to kind of see where the goalpost is set right now in terms of end game and see what you need, and then you can back pedal from there. So you can um basically look at what the end goal is, whatever team it is that you want to get to, and then plan and work your way backwards and follow that instead of just kind of going aimlessly and then you're like, oh, I should have done this
Right.
forever ago.
Well, yeah, and that plays perfectly into my point of like so people criticize my video, and I'm not trying to be too defensive here. Honestly, I just I want to explain it a little bit because I feel like people people take it. They're like, oh well, he can't. Obviously, he doesn't know anything about 6 million accounts. He's got 8 million at 8.4, way different than my 6 million or my 5 or 4, whatever.
Hmm.
And yeah, there are absolutely times I have blinders about the new player experience. Blind spots, I should say. I don't. There are things I don't know. I can't relate.
Right.
Unfortunately. However, I think that instead of me trying to make a video that's down to that level and just hoping that everyone has the same common squads, because they don't, they just truly don't. Like we do our roster roast,
Hmm.
and the smaller accounts were like, "What are you even doing? You're way different than everyone else." And they're way different than everyone else. Like it's just a mess. It's
Hmm.
crazy. It's like, how do you have this, but you don't know? But I think that there's a certain just intrinsic value of everyone is pointed in the direction of endgame. Whether you're there or not, whether you're on that road, it's going to be beneficial to see what the endgame players are playing and the counters that they're using now, so that you can plan for your future.
Right, exactly. And then you don't end up, you know, 2, 3 million GP down the road being like, oh my gosh, I really should have flushed out my bounty hunters, figured out my Imperial troopers, figured out this, figured out that. And now
Hmm.
you are in this state of catching up when theoretically you could be in a state of having all of the core stuff ready, that if something new comes out, you could pivot to it from whatever side project or gap you might be filling because it's not going to hurt you to do that.
Right, right. And CG's done a really good job of having their squads keep value. Like,
Hmm.
ever since Grievous was reworked, it's held tremendous value. That squad, I don't know how much, how many total crystals, and total gear and stuff that I've earned just from Grievous, but it's the gift that keeps giving. He continues to be amazing,
Hmm.
despite him being, years on years old.
Yeah, I still use Grievous all the time,
Oh,
everywhere.
amazing. Yeah, in all game modes. So, anyways, we should probably transition to the trigger photo. We're gonna
Right.
be, and then we'll go over your channel and talk about more stuff, more fun stuff.
More fun.
It'll be more funner.
Like that
Okay,
grammar.
I don't believe that you do. Okay, so we've got the token Gear One BB-8 that you love so much,
Oh,
and then all right, hold on, we gotta scale down this size of this one. um,
that's what she
okay,
said.
yeah, I know that's why. This one makes me laugh. You call them mod lockers, right? Something
I
like
call
that.
them storage lockers.
Storage lockers, yeah. So, I mean, the state of this WAD is so funny because you have to be level 50. Bottom right corner,
Hmm.
folks. You have to be level 50 to put mods on a character, and it's like at gear 8 with a Zeta, Wat Tambor is one of the best characters in the game
Absolutely.
because he gets to go before anyone. So
So good.
yeah. So even if he dies immediately after, he's still done some really important stuff. And so just seeing him at gear 1 with but the level 50 is what sells it to me
Yeah.
because they're like, oh, I've watched whatever. Like, at least I can use him. At least we can find some use for him.
As a storage locker.
Yeah. Oh, you know what's interesting is all the gear is equipped. They just haven't clicked the upgrade button to gear
Yeah.
2.
It's just sitting there.
It's so messed up, man.
It
Uh,
just hurts because it really is such a good character and so plug and play. And
yeah.
uh I feel like it's not being taken advantage of at all.
Yeah, it's kind of delightful. I also like that the highest relic on all of their separatists is Asajj, and she has her Omicron. And you're not going to catch any flack from me for enjoying Night Sisters. They are a really fun faction, and I would encourage everyone to at least look into building some semblance of Night Sisters. But it is kind of like it's a little bit sad. Like we were just talking about how good Grievous is. They do have a Grievous squad, but it's all Relic 3. Like it's just, because they can't even access they're really currently badass uh, datacrons.
Right. Oh man, that is sad.
It's sad. All right, guys. We're out of time. Go to Sarah's channel. There should be a button below, and like, subscribe, all that stuff. We'll see you over there momentarily.